Welcome to Conversations with Healers, a podcast and video interview series that features intimate, soulful, and cozy conversations with self-healers and healers. Healer to healer, we dive into all aspects of self-healing and healing and being and becoming a healer. I am Damla Aktekin. I'm a healer and the host of this podcast, and I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation. If you are new to this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe so that you can be aware of new episodes. I also invite you to visit adropofom.com, adropofom.com, where I share a lot of free resources for self-healing and healing, and you can take a free quiz to find out what your energetic wounds are and how they may show up in your life. Discovering what your wounds are is the first step in healing them. I hope you enjoy this episode. There is one more thing I would like to share with you before you listen to this episode. I created a wonderful container to help you process the collective trauma of the pandemic and begin to heal your energetic wounds. It is an energy healing membership called Chakra Bliss Vault. Every month, you will receive 3 new crystal healing sessions, plus you'll immediately have access to my entire energy healing recording library when you sign up. The membership is really affordable and will continue to be so. You can find out more about it at adropofom.com, adropofom.com. I invite you to make your healing a priority and invest in your well-being by becoming a Chakra Bliss Vault member. Hello everyone, this is Damla Aktekin with A Drop of Om, and today I have Anielle Reid with me. She is a psychic medium channel and the author of multiple oracle decks, which I'm so excited to talk about. She has created the Magick Mediums Oracle, the Slavic Oracle, and she has a new one coming called the Golden Light Oracle. So welcome, Anielle.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
Yes, so I'd love to find out your journey of healing and becoming a healer, as I call it. What led you to doing what you do now with the oracles and with your mediumship work? And how did that coincide with your own healing journey?
Wow. So creating oracle decks really has changed my whole entire life. How it's coincided is dramatic. For me, creating oracle decks is a type of magic that I do. I am a psychic medium channel, so even just creating the decks involves channeling, whether it's my highest self or ancestors, etc. And with my newest deck that I'm working on, totally changed my life to the point where I'm like, I need to get a divorce to write this deck, which I did. I need to quit my job to write this deck. I was like, it totally just pushes me to be better. And it also is a sort of offering to, I guess, the beings that help me with the decks and to people in the world. I got into oracle decks because I just loved cards. In 2017, I got back into using cards pretty much like every day. I was doing Instagram challenges, etc., and I just loved them. I saw them as a portal to all sorts of different worlds. Like if you wanted to communicate with Fae, you got a fairy deck, mermaids, the mermaid deck. And it just totally introduced me to whole new worlds and to new parts of myself.
That's beautiful. I'm so, as you're speaking, I got stuck on what you said. This is my way of channeling my personal magic, and I love that. Can you tell me a little bit about what does magic mean to you?
Magic, I would just say a general definition is just the manipulation of energy. And usually you're very aware that you're manipulating energy and you are consciously doing it so that it's advantageous to you.
Mm-hmm. And is that something you practice as well?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, what's for me, I write personal self-healing journals. I have written 4 of them during the pandemic. There's one about mantra magic, I could say, mantra practice. There's one about crystal healing, another one about gratitude. And I have my own sort of, like, there's a way they sort of fall into my heart and onto my lap, if you will. How does it work for you in that way? Like, is there particular inspiration? Like, are you even looking for inspiration, or they just show up? Like, what has been your journey with creating those decks?
So Magick Mediums deck came to me pretty much. Each deck is a chapter summary of the magic in my life. And so Magick Mediums summarizes pretty much every magical modality that I had used, and knew that it could help other people, from doing crystal grids, from simply working out, from forgiving people. Every card is a different magic. And at the time, I think that, the world, I pretty much am open to, okay, what do people want? And it's not like I'm actively on Google looking up trends and keywords, et cetera. It's just in the psychic web, and I just pick it up. In 2020, I made the Slavic Oracle, and my ex-husband is Polish. So I think I was thinking about having a baby. So it was a lot of the spirit of the baby, I guess, was in the air. And I really was feeling that. And just a lot of stuff with politics. I was like, this is the perfect deck. And now the Golden Light Oracle, I definitely feel is just where I am in life. I was doing a lot of different healings using Golden Light. And that really got me into I should talk more about this specific frequency, more about how different light codes assist in evolution, etc. So it's really just my life has these different chapters. And then as my life changes, it seems like immediately another energy, another deity is like, I'm next, So.
I love that. So I love how you're describing them as they coincide with your own transformation, with your own journey. And it's almost like you're creating for other people, but you're also creating for you and to understand where you're at. And that has been my journey as well, with online courses to writing to everything in between. I want to know, first of all, I am such a huge Oracle deck person. I don't know how else to I haven't met an Oracle deck that I didn't like yet. And apart from, on top of it, these past 2 years, I have been studying tarot with a teacher, and I'm absolutely in love with it. I love the symbology. So I want to know, for you personally, how you begin to connect with a deck, like how you practice Oracle deck magic in your life, and then how do you encourage people to do it in their lives?
So I guess I'm thinking in general, because I use my decks the most. I do use now I'm finding I'm doing a lot more ancestor work. So I have very specific decks that I feel I use only to connect with this specific ancestor, etc. So I use decks as pure communication with specific energies. I also like to use decks when I do magic. So if it's just having a grid and then I have the card as the specific portal, to whatever. And I would suggest people to use oracles as literally seeing them as portals to other worlds. So I know for me, I'm very sensitive as a deck creator. If I'm even working on a deck, like the celebrate card, then there's going to be something worth celebrating in my life while I do it. So I'm very like conscious about, don't have the card art up because something's going to happen, you know? So I see it as you really have to treat Oracle as a real magical tool, almost like a magnet, you can say, to whatever the art is depicting. Yeah, I see it as a spiritual tool and also just as a portal, but also just a mode of communication with you and very specific energies that might want to communicate through the art and the word on the card itself.
Can you give us some examples about like the type of questions you ask, or the type of, you mentioned your ancestors. So you use a specific deck to connect with a specific ancestor's energy, which I love. And then like, are there certain types of questions that you ask or don't ask from an oracle deck?
So some decks are so good for very specific things. I have a friend, V Love and Crystals, and she makes perfect decks for pick a card. So if you watch YouTube, you know, whenever you watch a pick a card video, there's like perfect decks for pick a card. So if it's like, what does my lover want from me? There's like a very sexy oracle deck, and it's literally like geared for sexy questions. So that sort of deck I wouldn't really use for like, what do my ancestors want from me? And then there's like the bondage card. It's like, no, that's probably not the best deck. So there's definitely very themed decks now, which is pretty awesome, that are like, really, I'm seeing a lot for seasons. Like there's like a Samhain oracle, then there's a Yule oracle, etc. So you know that that's perfect to use for specific times. And then, like I mentioned, they have a lot of like sexy decks. Yeah, so the ones that I use are really my decks. I've been using for ancestor work, the Slavic Oracle a lot.
Like what type of questions do you ask them?
Oh, sorry, because I was like, what did you ask me? Oh my gosh, anything in my life. Like I'm so, you can literally ask anything. And oh gosh, I'm trying to think. So there's always a guy, right? So there's a guy, and I'm just like, should I like him? What is he thinking about me? How is it gonna go on our date? You know, like all of those questions I can always ask. And even though I don't even have like a yes or a no, I can just see the picture, the words, and the energy. I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I ask anything and everything. Like, should I do this job, or what should I do tomorrow? You know, should I buy this? Should I talk to this person? You know, how should I write this email? Literally, like I ask everything.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very similar here. One of my favorite things, in fact, is, and I do this with my tarot deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith, the very classical, is just pulling a card for the day. Like, what's the flavor of the day? What do I need to be aware of today? What's the theme that's happening? And more often than not, it's going to show me, it's going to be in line with what I have going on. And then occasionally it's going to remind me, oh, okay, this is also going on. Like, be aware of this. And it's not like, you know, I think when people think about cards, they immediately become concerned about what if something bad shows up. It's not like that. It's more like when you see like swords, for instance, to me, it's a reminder to take a little better care of myself, like tend to the anxiety and maybe reduce the amount of things I do so that I can do that and I can create that space. I love also that you're mentioning the sexy decks versus the decks for ancestors. And I think for me, I'm most drawn to, surprisingly enough, outside of tarot, I'm drawn to like light worker type decks, which are mostly positive, but there's a lot of like Akashic records or things like that. And then I'm drawn to Egyptian decks for whatever reason. I love that their imagery, the symbology of it, which brings me to, I feel like there's more than one deck for everyone, but for someone who, for, some reason doesn't have any decks, I don't know what that would be. But I guess the message here that I'm gathering is that you get drawn to what you're drawn to and to go with that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell us a little bit about, you mentioned this Golden Light Oracle deck being sort of a gateway for you. What about that is opening things in you? How is it assisting you in your transformation?
Well, I literally was like, I couldn't even write any of the deck when I lived with my ex-husband. I was like, I have to move out, like, because just like being in the house, I was like, I can't write. So I already knew that it was like being like, Danielle, kind of like pushing me to like really work with Golden Light and to be like, I feel like I'm sort of like channeling my answer, so I'm kind of forgetting your question too. So if I'm like going off, what was your question again?
What's so special about the Golden Light Oracle deck?
Oh, well, wow, it's incredibly spiritual. Each deck I feel, is very incredible. They're all my babies, but this one is like, each card I really have to sit and be in a very like deep like silence, like it demands like so much of me, versus the other ones, like let's say the Magick and Mediums, it was like, okay, the activation card, I have a general sense, and I could write blah blah blah, get back to it, but this one is demanding for it to be like channeled and very like a light worker deck, very like any light worker deck, you just read the like whatever and you're like, oh wow, this is clearly some channeled stuff. So it's like that. Yeah, and yeah, it's just the deepest deck that I've worked on as of
And
yet.
you channel and you write? Do you do the artwork too, or do you partner with someone else for the artwork? How does it?
So the artwork I already, for actually each of all of my decks, I have the idea for the art, and then I'll even get reference photos and be like, it needs to be this and that, or draw a little, do this. And I'll get the ideas either from my meditations, or I just know for sure this is what needs to be represented. For actually both the Golden Light Oracle and the Magick and Mediums Oracle, I had a specific tier where backers could be in the deck. So certain cards are of the backers. But overall, yeah, I know what needs to be drawn. I send the reference photos to the artist. There's the sketch, and then I approve, and then,
Yeah.
that's the
When you
process.
say backers, I believe you ran a fund me campaign, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that. How did that go?
I think it went well. I did I want to say I did 4 successful Kickstarter campaigns. And I raised enough to get it printed, which is the goal. So yeah, I think that they go well. Yeah, I'm pleased with it. It's always great when you don't have to pay out of pocket, to create something. So I'm really grateful, honestly, for Kickstarter.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you get the support of the community beforehand.
Yeah.
Even before the baby's born, you have the support.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Bring it into life. So you obviously are pretty in touch with your intuition. What do you feel is the biggest obstacle between people and really being in touch with their intuition, like knowing and trusting their intuition? And oracle cards is just one way of doing that, right? You work with the symbolism, you work with the messages and the images, but there are other ways of connecting with your intuition, obviously. But why don't we? What's the obstacle?
I think fear and just what we focus our attention on. I know for me, because I just recently got divorced and was like quitting my job, I noticed that because there's obviously a magic of your attention. And so that compounds, whatever you focus on is going to compound. And people focus on their work that they don't like, focus on relationships they don't like, focus on mainly things that aren't intuition and your own magic, focus more on like being oppressed or whatever silly story like you're taught or you get caught in. And then I feel that that makes it more difficult to trust your intuition, because you spend 85% of the day just being an autopilot, doing very masculine traits, the masculine work, so that it's kind of hard to shift to that feminine intuitive fully.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. For me, I call it, I like that you're calling it almost like remembering your personal magic. Your personal magic is there. It doesn't go anywhere, right? For me, the wording I use is finding those moments where you connect with your soul helpers, and the soul of life, the soul of universe all around you. There's just so much benevolence, in my experience, support and energy out there.
Yes.
Connect with, which brings me to mediumship. How did you come about that? Like how are you in evolution within that now? What does it mean to you, mediumship?
Mediumship for me means communication with spirits beyond the veil. I know a lot of people like to confine it to just spirits of past loved ones, but I like to include it for all energies. And right now, we just had Halloween a couple of days ago, and I did some readings for Halloween, which was awesome at this event. And that was really fun for certain spirits of past loved ones to show up for people during the readings. I feel like where I am now, it's just a natural part of life that I feel, though, for me as a medium, I just do it for people who need those messages. I was never the medium or the reader who liked to work with people who'd be like, show me magic exists or show me your skills. Like, that's just not my thing. So it's very much so, if somebody, needs the message, then I'll be there to share that.
What's the most common and you feel most important message that you hear?
Really, most energies share love, and also they want the person who's receiving the message to not be in fear. It seems like so many people are sad and don't connect with the love that's there. So it's always just this reminder of like, you're actually doing a good job. You're actually lovable. And, you don't have to believe in that you're not going to do well in life. I feel that a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah. What's next for you, Anielle? What's next in your creative journey?
Wow.
In your personal evolution?
Wow. The Golden Light Oracle for sure. That's my main focus. And when I read cards for myself, I always get the mystery card. So I'm feeling that it's just like, complete trust, and also being really rewarded for that. That's what I feel is next for me, because I've made space for that really to be the only option. So big magic for sure, a lot more magic, more decks, and just being in alignment, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. And what would you say to someone who is sort of maybe in that fear mode? Maybe they're working on getting out of it. Like, what would you like to say to them?
Just increase the amount of time that you aren't in fear. So if you're in fear most of the time, that's 24 hours. So try tomorrow to spend 1 hour where you're in love, and just imagine yourself and feel yourself not being in fear. And then you can naturally do that for another hour next week. So 2 hours, and then you'll magically see how the time shifts in your favor. So it's honestly, it's just dedicating and focusing on not focusing on fear.
Yeah.
Really.
No,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And they can use oracle cards too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anielle, thank you so much. This was an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Thank
So
you.
I'm going to include your website. You have a coupon code for our listeners, which will give them 10% off of your card decks, as well as a psychic medium session with you. So thank you so much for that. So I'll include that information. And I wish you all the best. Honestly, I look forward to seeing what else you're going to create.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Conversations with Healers. If this episode spoke to you in any way, please leave a review or comment, like or love it, and share it with others in your life. This is a true soul love project from my heart to yours. I really appreciate your help in spreading the word. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and check out other episodes to listen to some extraordinary healing stories and advice. Have a beautiful and wonderful day.